good morning, everybody. And I say good morning to Roger and Amanda, my panelists today. It's good to see you. I'm logging in from Pensacola, Florida. I'm in Central Time, and so I just need to let you all know I may be taking a sip of coffee during this because it's only 8 o'clock in the morning while we're recording this. So it's a little bit early, so there may be some coffee, but that's okay. So we're very excited to be with you this morning. We're going to discuss such an important element of owning a tax and accounting practice. It's having and scaling the right business model, a business model that serves your life, which oftentimes running a tax and accounting practice doesn't feel like that firm is serving your life and your best interests. How to get out of the trap in our tax and accounting of overwork, overwhelm, burnout, losing key people, frustrated clients, having the wrong technology, really just a feeling of we're always behind. This presentation is for owners of tax and accounting firms or people that want to be owners. Both Roger and Amanda, and we'll do some proper intros in just a second, but both Roger and Amanda have started and owned successful tax and accounting practices. They've been on this journey and that we call rightsizing. But now all three of us are part of the executive team at Padgett. And so we're helping firm owners go through this process, what we call rightsizing, and building the firms they want and firms they want to have in their lives. So I'll just give a brief introduction about Padgett. If you're not familiar, Padgett is a national leader in providing tax and advisory services to the small business community, and we've been doing it for nearly 60 years. We're a franchise business model. That means we have franchises that are independently owned, that are local tax and accounting firms. Accounting firm owners affiliate or join our franchise while receiving all the benefits of being a part of a large national established system that offers business model and offers community and offers marketing, a technology stack, and so many great benefits while remaining independent and independently professional. And so they really firms join our franchise in order to receive a lot of the journey that we're talking about today. So a lot of things that we have learned in 60 years of institutional knowledge of building up accounting practices is why we're speaking with you today. So more to come on Padgett later in the presentation, so you can learn more about us. And just to set the table today, thinking about where you're at right now, and love for you to take a second to think about where you are in your own practice. And it's always good to reflect on the last time you went through busy season. And I'm sure you've wondered to yourself, is there a better way, right, to do this? And how was it for you right now running your own practice, and what needs work inside that firm? This is such a great time of year to sit back and work on the business and think about, what does this business need and what do I need as an owner to take this to the next level? So we think the answers lie in your business model itself. You don't want to scale the wrong business model, because those problems that you have today only get much bigger as you grow. I know a friend in the industry, being around for our accounting profession for a decade now, who built up their firm really the wrong way, upwards of $800,000 tax and accounting practice, but all of the metrics inside the firm were bad when they were at $200,000. They were overpaying for too many low value staff. That was being incredibly difficult to manage. The price of the tax return, the price of monthly accounting was so low that even though they were getting more business, it was straining the system. And so by the time they got up and worked, white knuckled their way up to 800,000, 900,000, they were struggling so poorly financially that they had to have a major reckoning and go through a difficult journey of laying people off, rehiring, repricing. And you don't want to get to that point. So our panel today, Roger and Amanda, and I will offer you some topics where you can make gains this year and going forward to be in the right business model that that we call Rightsizing. So I want to bring in my partners at Padgett, who both have awesome experience in their own right. I guess we'll do formal introductions, and I'll start. I'm Jeff Phillips. I'm our CEO. Background is really more of an entrepreneur. Started a company that is a staffing firm in the accounting profession. So I've been involved in the last decade with probably 1,000 hires into accounting practices. So I know the people aspect of running an accounting practice really well, but I've never owned a firm myself. Still own the staffing firm, but 4 years ago almost, I took over as CEO of Padgett. My mom and dad own a small accounting firm, so there's a deep passion for me in working with owners to learn things from my own entrepreneurial journey to help them realize their potential and be in the business they want. I live in Pensacola, Florida. So Amanda, welcome. Good morning, and please say hi and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Amanda Aguillard and I am the Chief Operating Officer of Padgett. I joined Padgett about 3 years ago, but prior to that I ran my own virtual accounting practice. I actually still have it as a franchise firm of Padgett, and I'm able to do that mostly because I have been removed from the delivery of services in that practice. I have folks that do a really good job of running it and engaging with our clients. So my history is that I started on the tax side of Deloitte back when it was Deloitte and Touche, and there were 6 big firms. If that tells my age, I went from that job to becoming a corporate controller for about 5 years. And after having 2 babies in 16 months, I stopped working for a little while. They were, my priority, and so I didn't work for a couple of years. But then found myself single and knew I'd have to go back to work. And so I remember my lifestyle as a big 6 staff and senior, and it wasn't great. And I remember my lifestyle as a corporate controller, and even that wasn't great. And the kids were so little, they were 6 and 7 at the time, that I decided I would just take a jump and do some contract work. Now my kids are 19 and 20, by the way. But I kind of organically created this accounting firm back in the old days. And I say the old days, the dark ages of cloud accounting, before it was really a thing. And I was committed to having a virtual practice, a remote practice, because of the kids being so young and wanting to be available to them. And so back then I had to figure out a lot of the technology stuff on my own for my practice. And a couple of years into doing that, I ended up starting a tech training company for accountants and bookkeepers. But that's one of the pieces I really, really love. And so when Jeff in 2021 asked me to bring all that experience to Padgett, I jumped and said yes, because then I got to take what I had struggled with for 10 years and figure it out on my own and just deliver it to almost 200 practice owners that have firms that look a lot like mine did. So it's been a real joy. It's a great position. So I'm super happy to be at the position and also here with you guys today.
Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Amanda. I have one advantage. I'm in the East Coast, so I've already had my coffee, so I won't need to take coffee breaks. I'm not sure the picture does my gray hair justice. I have been with Padgett over 50 years, so I've been through a lot of tax seasons. And the one thing that I hope I can bring to you today is that you don't have to accept the status quo. Is that we know how challenging running an accounting firm and a tax firm can be, but you also have to set some parameters of what's acceptable to you, to your staff, and therefore set some rules as to what it means to be a client of our firm. Now, I would like to tell you that in my 50 years of Padgett that I haven't worked some long hours. I started before there were tax softwares, which either shows how stupid I am or dedicated I am to continue through tax seasons and all the things when we did them by hand. But the one thing I did learn is if I set the right priorities for me and my firm, that the firm would follow and clients would also follow. And I would like to tell you that in an hour we can fix all of your problems, but I don't think that's reasonable. But I think what we can do is begin to show you what the path to making your firm better looks like, and begin to have that walking down that path start But I'm going to tell you, it's going to start with you. If you don't buy in completely to making changes and understanding it's going to take a lot of different touch points, there's going to be technology issues. There's going to be staffing issues. There's going to be client issues. There's going to be pricing issues. There's going to be all kinds of things that you're going to have to address as you walk down this path to a better firm. But if you're not committed to it and you don't lead it, it's not going to happen. That's what I hope we can show you today is here is the path. We'll show you where it begins. Be committed to it. And there is a better work-life balance, which will make your firm more valuable to your future purchaser. It'll make it easier for you to hire people to come and work in a firm that has good work-life balance, and it will certainly make your family happy. So we're pleased to be here. We're excited about the opportunity to share some of our ideas with you. And Jeff, I guess it's time to get started.
And Roger, you got a hearty go dogs in the comments. Right. So Roger is a huge University of Georgia Bulldog fan and alumni. Yep. Awesome. You know, we are coming to this presentation from a place of trying to educate. Although, and we're going to talk about Padgett because that's our experience. If it comes across as a commercial, we're certainly not trying to do that, although we very much would like to talk to anyone who's interested in just learning more. It never hurts to have that conversation because there are wins here that we have learned the hard way that we want to share with you. Our firms receive more marketing leads than their peers because of our internal marketing programs. Our firms tend to have a higher growth rate than their peers. Our firms tend to outdo profit margins than their peer firms in their local communities, and just because they're part of a large system. But when you do something for nearly 60 years, you learn the hard way through a lot of trial and error how to get there. So hopefully what you walk away with is some context. But just to provide a little background, we're going to talk about this company, and they sponsor the webinar. But we're here to primarily educate you on some things that we've learned, and hopefully that comes across. Amanda, lay out what we're going to cover.
Sure. So we're going to talk about the right service mix and why that's really important to you choosing your product, the product you're delivering, why pricing is key, how to decide which clients you want to work with, how to streamline processes, take advantage of technology for those processes, and getting your team the right people in the right seats, and then making it all work together by communicating the change to the people that are involved. So I'll start with what is rightsizing. So we titled this, rightsizing, but what does that really mean? And for us at Padgett, this is where we start. So this is making sure, as Jeff alluded to, making sure that the system is in place so that we can grow. A lot of people want to grow. Not everybody wants to grow and get big, but a lot of folks do want to build a bigger, successful practice, but that can't happen until the wiring is set. And so for us, that's right-sizing. So it's the right work for the right clients at the right price with the right people. So the right work is choosing those products and making sure you're doing the things that you like to do, are good at doing, feel comfortable doing, choosing the right clients to provide those services for, making sure you're getting market value for those or above for those services, and that you're doing it with the right people and the right structure of staff beneath you. So we hear this over and over again, and sometimes it can be noise, but it's super important. Your client wants a relationship with their accountant or bookkeeper or advisor. They value your experience, and they're willing to pay for it. What we don't do a very good job of is communicating that we can give them these services, or we just give them the services and don't establish or create some sort of value to it. Our clients want us to give them proactive advice, but what has happened a lot, especially in tax heavy practices, is that we don't have the space to do it. So either we don't have the time because we're in the middle of tax season, or we're worn out from tax season and we're not present. So if we're on the hamster wheel of tax returns for, call it 4 months out of the year, it becomes really difficult to make time for those conversations. So what we want to do is back up the tax season, the compression around tax season, pull that back, make tax season, or both of them, when I look at spring and fall, make those a little bit thinner, make them less stressful, and continually start to create a cadence of touch points and service delivery for our clients that doesn't revolve around a form. So how do we do this? If you are a tax heavy practice, the quickest way to getting clients engaged around the calendar is to do quarterly planning meetings or to do their estimates. So making sure that at a regular cadence, you're having conversations that are not just, a plus or a minus on a form, but what's going on in your practice. I mean, I've had clients tell me this when I used to do tax work. Nobody's ever asked me how my business is doing. It would be too late. They would show up with forms at the end of the year. The CPA may or may not spend time with them. They'd give them an answer, right? The bottom line, either write a check or get this deposit back. That was it. And what I really love doing was just asking my clients, how's your business going? How do you feel like your business is going? And it opens up and unlocks a lot of, first of all, it's a good relationship builder. It's important, right? These people are important to you, but it unlocks the ability to add in other services. So first is to just plug something on the calendar for even 15 minutes with your clients and say, how are things going? Let's look at what that might mean for you before the clock has, shut down on December 31. How can we help you? But even better is figuring out a way to crank our tax clients into monthly recurring revenue. So one of the things we do systematically at Padgett each year is we get data from all of our firms, pretty detailed financial data around their service lines, what they're bringing in different products, as well as their expenses. But we also get the numbers of different types of returns that they do and monthly accounting clients. So we look at average fees, and good fee for an individual tax return may be in the neighborhood of $600 as an average. That's pretty good. But if we can turn a $600 tax client into a $600 a month accounting client, that client then becomes a $7,000 client, not a $600 client. So what does that do? That allows us to be real picky about who we're working with, and not have to take everything that walks in the door. And it buys us some capacity. So having our monthly recurring revenue here, which tends to be, by the way, we're doing the same thing every month. It becomes a very efficient work. We're not having to remember 12 months later, this thing about the client that's important to the tax return. We're touching this client every month, and we can a lot of times offload a bunch of that work to automation or to our lower level staff. So it becomes super efficient. It's bigger fees because it's recurring. So it's definitely a way to get some more space and increase your lifestyle as a practice owner. So revenue mix, as we mentioned, we look seriously at detailed into what our firms bring to our practice. And at Padgett, we have our firms, folks might think of us as a tax business. Roger's very active with the IRS and testimony in front of Congress, and we have a federal tax podcast. But the reality is that half of our services in the Padgett network come from non-tax offerings. So our 4 core service lines are tax, accounting, payroll, and advisory. And the reality is a lot of times tax compliance might bring our clients in, but there's so much more value in turning those clients into consumers of other products. As we just mentioned, the monthly recurring revenue, it helps to release that pressure valve on tax season. And we can move from, super compressed, stressful 4 months of the year to just a solidly productive 12-month business. So as we talk today, keep in mind, how is it that in your practice, your own practice, you might be able to make the move from tax compliance work to monthly accounting work. So I did this. When I started my practice, as I mentioned, kind of went out on a lark and started just doing some work, picking up some contract work and doing tax returns. I have a master's degree in taxation. And so that was my public accounting background. And when you're starting a practice, you kind of have to take whatever shows up on the porch. And I did. So a lot of it was tax return work. And I consciously realized after a few years of it that I hated February to April, which happens to be the best weather in New Orleans where I live. And so I'd start when it was cold, and then I'd come out of the other side when it was really, really hot, and I had missed all this great weather. And so I was like, this doesn't feel great. And something happened. I got a lead through Zero, which is the software I use, for a quilt shop in Alaska who wanted help connecting their GL system to an operational software. And man, I loved that. I loved figuring out how to do these integrations. And I was like, I want to do more of that. And so what I ended up doing was over about 2 years selling my tax practice. And now we do only accounting work. So, and we're known for it. We've done it. Folks are willing to pay for it. It saves them stress. It saves them time. And you can make pretty good money doing it, and it's comfortable. So that's my story. I was able to flip the script and get out of the tax business totally. And I know a lot of folks maybe don't even want to do that. And I'm not suggesting you do, but just know that there are other things that are possible. It doesn't have to stay the way it is with this compliance grind.
And Amanda, one of my takeaways from what you're talking about is the objective of evening out the workload so that it is not so heavy in a 3-month time span, and the benefits of team, of owner satisfaction, balance, and that's just it's a metric you can measure, right? So thanks for that. And Roger, when you talk about pricing and which is this really the second core tenet of all of this, is how are we going to get this right to affect the better business model?
Right. It seems like everything in business comes down to price or money. I mean, money or time. And we're going to spend time talking about money now, but you have the right to order those however you want. If money's more important than time, or time's more important than money, or they're equal, that's up to you. The point I think we have to learn, and a lot of it's going to reflect back to what Amanda was talking about, is that I think sometimes we undervalue what we're worth to clients. And they probably put more value in us at times than we do. But here's how you get your value and how you price, and some challenges. Amanda mentioned I go to Washington and do all that sort of stuff. I don't do that because I like to fly or I like to spend time at the IRS headquarters. I do that so we can talk about something that we talked about earlier, being proactive, not reactive. The problem we have in many instances is everything that we do is historical. Every financial statement we prepare is last month or last quarter. Every tax return we prepare is last year. What our clients want is to take that experience and talk about tomorrow, to influence the numbers on the tax return, not just put the numbers on the tax return. If you do those things, your value to your customer goes up, and the amount of money you can charge for your services also goes up. We deal that every day. We pay more money to go to a restaurant where the food's good versus a restaurant where the food's bad. So they're going to pay more money to come to us if we provide proactive services and are helping them look forward, not just look back. Now, again, we have to have pricing models. And one of the big mistakes that we make is every time we try to talk to our firms about raising their price and charging more, you get into this discussion about a 10% increase. That's some number. And will my clients accept that? Well, the answer is probably yes. And so we chicken out and we don't do it. And then 5 years from now, instead of having a 10% increase, we got to have a 50% increase. So if 10 was hard, 50 is really hard. So one of the keys to any successful pricing model, particularly in the world we live in today with inflation and cost of staff goes up, cost of software goes up, cost of everything goes up, is we cost more as well. But ultimately, and we have an example of one of our offices, if you're doing your job properly and you're talking more about the future than the past, and you're giving guidance to people about what's ahead of on the road, not what you've already passed, they will value that and they will pay you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we run surveys of our offices. We compare it to industry standards. And again, what I think the thing that I have learned in my long years is I don't appreciate, if we do our job right, what a client values it at. And I will say this to you, and I've said it to our office. If you're not too expensive for somebody, you're too cheap for everybody, because you've got to be willing to take on price. And sometimes it's just unfortunate that some people won't be able to pay it, but that doesn't influence the rest of your firm. And Jeff, I think we've got an example of an office who kind of, I think, went through that. They looked at their pricing, Janet Kopp in Gainesville, Georgia. We just have to, price can also be a technique to clean up your business, in the sense that if you continue to look at your pricing structure and continue to raise your minimum fees and raise your prices, you are going to become too expensive for some, but you're not going to lose in gross revenue, and you're going to get some time back, and then you can decide what to do with that time. You can take it for yourself. As I said, sometimes you value time more valuable than money, or you can use that time to go, one of the challenges to taking on a change in your firm in terms of adding accounting clients is you look at that filing season and go, well, I don't have time. Well, this will free up time so that you can then make the conversion to another line of service and spread out your revenue. So prices is a critical implement of a well-run firm. I think it's more important than sometimes we value it. We just think that it's the first line of a P&L, and that means the bottom line gets better if that number's bigger. But it's a tool we can use to help right-size our firm. It'll force us to do the right things with our clients. And ultimately, it won't be your price that runs clients off. It'll actually be something they're happy to pay if you're doing the right things. And Janet has been a perfect example of that.
Well, and we probably all have clients that ought to be disengaged,
right?
Because that reduces the workload of high volume, low price clients. I want to talk a second about where do we go and find the right clients, the ones that do pay, the value that we expect. So Amanda, talk about that.
Yeah. So if you had a bad tax season, bad being, working too late, stressed out, your family was upset with you, this is the time you need to do this. You need to clean house. You've got to figure out who your clients will be for next season now. January is not the time to do this. November is not the time to do this. It needs to be done in May. So look at your client list. And I mean, hardcore, write a list or export it from your tax software of every tax return extension you did, what the fee is going to be, and look at those. And, Marie Kondo is like the tidy up lady. And if you touch something, it should spark joy. If you're looking at a client name and it doesn't spark joy, in fact, makes you kind of tense and nauseous, they shouldn't be with you. So systematically, what we do is look at this whole list and say, who are my A+ clients? They brought their stuff in. It was organized. They had a nice attitude. They paid a good fee. These are key clients. They're great. Those are our A+ clients we are going to keep. Then we're going to look at those clients that make us feel bad in our stomach. Those are F clients. Those are the ones that might be very late to submit, but also demanding. Those tend to go hand in hand. They had incomplete information that was disorganized. They didn't respond. They maybe were rude to staff. To me, that's a hard no. We do not allow our staff. Our staff is probably the most important resource that we have in our practice. We protect them at all costs. So we fire these clients. And that means it doesn't matter what the fee is. They're not worth it. And then the ones in between, let's look at those and figure out why they weren't A+. So is it anything that we can change? So can we fix it? Is it a matter of just pricing being wrong? Okay, well, let's go increase their fees. Is it a trainable thing? So is it somebody who's showing up with tables and Word documents instead of spreadsheets? Are there things that we can train them to to fix? Can we make them A clients? And you've got to make those decisions now objectively and under the coming off of tax season. Can't wait. And once we do that, we're doing this in May. Let's look at what we can do in the next 6 months, 8 months to replace some of those clients with potential A pluses. So look at what your ideal client might look like objectively. That could be industry. I mean, there's tons of noise in the space about niches. So are there certain niches that you are comfortable with and really good at? Like maybe that's where you need to target your marketing focus. But it doesn't have to be just niches, industry niches. It could be things like platforms. Or do you have clients that are using certain operational platforms that make sense that maybe you can specialize in? Or could it be a growth stage of the company? So are you really good at startups? Are you really good at working with clients who are looking for funding? Are you really good at looking at clients who are looking to be purchased? So it can be a lot of different things. So figuring out what your ideal client looks like is the next big step. Then we're going to move into going to find those clients and backfilling with the B's that we can turn into A's. But that's sort of our practice, what we do with our firms over at Padgett. And we had Rex Rudolph, who's a great franchise owner in Michigan. He did this a couple years ago. He came off a horrible tax season, miserable, just didn't want to do it again, and decided that they were not going to do 1040 work. When I say 1040 work, I mean just W-2 1040 work. They were going to focus on small businesses. So they got rid of all of them, and they sent out 200 termination letters. Rex also realized that a core of his own time as the owner was spent in supporting his largest client. And I think at some point he estimated to us it was about 35% of his time that he was spending on this one client. And he realized he was never going to change the tone of his practice if he was burdened with this big client. Now that's super scary. This was his largest revenue client, but he decided to eliminate that. He has backfilled it with good small business work, and he's doing it with his profit percentage has gone up, and this is the most important thing, he's just a happier firm owner.
Yeah.
Staff is much happier. So we've helped him go through this process up in Michigan.
Thanks, Amanda. So Roger, let's talk about process, and we're looking for progress over perfection here. So where do we think about process?
Yeah, and I'm going to reflect back to my early days. There actually was a Mr. Padgett that started Padgett. And there was one rule that he had, which was that our process for doing work was more important than what a client wanted. And it's actually more important than my job, because if I decided not to follow his process, I would be looking for a job somewhere else. So process was critically important because he understood that only by having a process that everyone, staff, clients, and everyone had to fit into, would we maintain the efficiency necessary to get the work done in a manner that was sustainable, profitable, and good for all people. So I learned that lesson at a very early age because I wanted to keep my job and support my family. So I didn't question the process. And I think at times we've allowed technology to let us somehow deviate from that thought process, that because I have a new computer, I got a new program or something, that I'm willing to not have a system that my staff can understand, my clients can understand, that leads to the most efficiency. Now that's going to be different for each of your firms. You're going to have different technology. You're going to have different clients. You're going to have different things. But whatever your firm is, needs to have a definable, understandable process to maximize the efficiency and make your life actually easier. Because again, you're deciding whether or not clients conform to your way of doing business, or you conform to every client's way of wanting to do business. And you cannot be profitable doing it their way. And that goes back to some clients aren't your ideal clients because they will not conform. They are not properly trained in technology. That's okay. That is okay to lose a client. It's not as hard as you think, particularly in today's world. People who do our jobs properly are in high demand. You're not going to have any trouble replacing a bad client with a good one if you have the capacity to take them on. But if you don't have any capacity, you're stuck with the bad ones and you don't have room for the good ones, and that's not a way to be successful. Don't be afraid of losing a client. You'll be surprised if you're willing to lose one, they're more likely to change because they don't want to lose you. So process is critically important. If you can't explain it, you don't have one. So start by looking at your firm and could you define the processes of your firm to do tax work, do accounting work in a way that everybody understands? Because if you can't, you don't have one, you need to start developing one.
That brings to mind, Roger, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but our owner in San Mateo who has a process just for booking appointment slots.
Yeah, every part of the process is important. It starts with how does, in this case, we're talking about Chris, how do people get access to Chris? And, he uses, he puts a calendar out there and people can book calendars. I know for years, there's been people during tax season who schedule appointments as part of mailing out their organizers. And we decided in advance, this is when I'm available, or this is when you're coming in. But scheduling is a big part of the process. When are you available? One of the big problems I know you all have during tax season or any busy season is disruption. Disruption of someone coming in and taking you away from what it is you thought you were going to do that day. And that's partly because you don't have a process for dealing with incoming people or problems or whatever the case may be. And so you have handed over your day-to-day activity to external forces instead of internal forces. You may just have to come in on Tuesday and say, no phone calls, no clients, no staff. Tuesday is my day to do X. But that means every Tuesday, I'll go back to what I said earlier, you're going to set the tone. You can't say no phone calls on Tuesday and then take phone calls on Tuesday because nobody else is going to have rules if you don't. So Chris did it with scheduling. We could give you tens of examples of other parts of it, but every part of your business needs to be systematized and understood by all the parties that are going to benefit from it. Your clients will benefit from it because they'll get consistency. They'll know what the rules are. They'll know when the tax returns comes in. They'll know when it's going to be ready. They'll know what it's going to cost. They'll know who to talk to. It's better for everybody, but you got to be the conductor of this train.
You're scratching and clawing for minutes here, right? Because every minute is worth a maximum amount of your value, right? And so the process is where you're going to gain that. Think about tax returns. A good metric is how long does it take our team to deliver tax returns in and out?
Right.
Measure that, and then develop processes to cut that in half or greater. The other supplement here is how do we think about technology? So, man, I'd like you to do a briefer on how do we think about the tech stack?
Yeah, I love this part. It's one of my favorite roles at Padgett. Love to look at technology, but things can go sideways really quickly. Technology will not solve a process problem. That's key. Like as Roger mentioned, you have got to figure out what your processes are. I mean, write them, draw them out on a whiteboard, figure out how data is moving. Only then can you lay a technology solution on top of it. And when you've got a good process, technology is going to create a lot of efficiency for you, but you can't do it if the underwiring is bad. So decide if there are things that are repetitive or low value, is there something we can plug in that will fix that? And that's when we get into into tech research. Remember that software websites are written by marketing people, not accountants and bookkeepers. So there are lots of promises out there in the world, but what happens is you go down rabbit holes and realize a piece of software isn't exactly what you thought it was, or you do a search for, firm workflow management and you get 20 million responses back. So we do a good job, I think, at Padgett of presenting on a platter our options to our firm. But for those of you who are trying to figure this out on your own, peers, if you have a peer group or social media is a great way to go, at least narrow down your options from 28 to 3 tools. And then, you've got it. One thing that's interesting that's happening in the accounting technology space that has over the last few years is like there's a lot of overlap on products. Products are building out to do things that weren't in their core. And so you have to identify like what your must-haves are. What do you actually have to solve for? Non-negotiables, and start there. And then it can be fluff. Like if you need a workflow tool, it absolutely has to. This could be one of your must-haves. I'm not saying it does, but maybe you want a place where you can track your staff time. That's very important to you, but a client portal is not so important to you, or vice versa. Maybe you're looking for a workflow tool that has a client portal. So figuring out what those must-haves are, and then adoption. If you make the commitment and you're doing it, you just have to do it. There's always going to be pushback in staff and clients, but a lot of times with staff. You have to, if you've done the research and you really believe this is the right product for your practice, you just have to be willing to go through that change process, and it's not fun. But the best way to the end is to go through it as quickly as possible. So commit, get training. A lot of these platforms are very good about supporting onboarding, implementation, push through, get it done, start using it. Don't dilly-dally. That's kind of the worst experience for everybody. So that's kind of the way we look at tech changes at Padgett. And one example of this is Jean Hellier, who is in Utah. She was manually filing 1099s for a couple of years ago. She would go into each of her accounting files and do some spreadsheets and then printing on 1099 forms. And we helped her get connected with a 1099 platform where it's nearly automated. There's tracking. It's actually super reasonably priced. And so she doesn't have to really touch 1099s anymore. And she can still make money off of them, which is the best place to be.
So I want to talk about people, because you can't right size without addressing the people in your firm. You can't have a firm without people. And I think there are two things to think about. One is, do you have the right people in the right seats? And just a very easy method that I would do annually is to go through your team and do a plus or minus score on each person inside your team on a couple of basic questions. Can they do this job? Do they want to do this job? If you've read the book Traction by Gino Wickman, they talk about gets it once, it has the capacity to do it. Are they a cultural fit? And are they of value to me as the owner, plus or minus? And keep track of that and see if those are, you might have some folks with a lot more minuses than pluses, and those folks may need to go. Folks with lots of, with some pluses and some minuses, there may need to be some training or coaching involved to get them into more of the plus side. It's a very simple way to make sure you've got the right people with the right seats. Obviously, turnover is a problem. Turnover is voluntary quitting. Inside accounting firms the size we deal with are facing 20% turnover annually. I imagine that you have numbers that look similar to that if you hire people. So we're going to have the right people to scale this practice, but you cannot hire good people without having money coming into the system at the right clip to afford the talent. So this is all integrated, right? The pricing that we start with and the processes that we start with impact who we can hire and can we keep them. If you have the money to afford the right hire, you can put them in. Now, applying the other right sizing principles of reducing the work, leveling out the work throughout the year, what's that going to do? That's going to help you keep people, because turnover is driven by work-life balance and having to be always on for our clients and the overwork that's happening. This will free you to allow things like remote work and a little more flexibility. So it's important to get this right, but I see the right people as kind of a result of right sizing. Right sizing gives you the tools to do the right people. One of our owners in Tennessee has a really interesting story of a creative staffing story where they hired a part-time tax preparer remotely who works for them all year. Let me rephrase that. They really work for them in tax season, but they're paid all year. Does that make sense? They do some light work in May through December, but they do heavy work during filing season. But economically speaking, because they have this person on their staff and their utilization is pretty low in the off season, but they have the resources they need during busy season so that everyone isn't so overwhelmed. It's a great example of getting creative, utilizing remote staffing to be able to plug in a person and lighten the load during busy season. And a really great way to accomplish that. So the last thing I'll say about people, because we're in a challenging time with people, is to implement surveys. Start asking your team questions like, do they know what their job is? Do they have what they need to do their job? And how is their work-life balance? I have firms that are routinely asking that on a monthly basis, just whipping together a quick Google form and emailing it out. And what happens is it raises issues before it becomes a major quitting problem, and you can address it. Maybe you need to address somebody's work-life balance situation. So survey your folks and make sure you got the right folks in the right seats. So one last example that I just think is really exciting is our owner, Mary Beth, who is in Denver, and really kind of a summary of Rightsizing gone really, really well. They've had tremendous success in Rightsizing, and it's been a lot of fun working with her as she's gotten this business model correct. Because we have a tech stack, they follow Go Proposal, which is a repricing product, and they were able to increase prices sometimes at a 100% clip. But Go Proposal and how we've set it up for her kind of takes some of the sting of repricing away from our clients. Interestingly, they lost a few clients, but their revenue still went up significantly, even though they were able to effectively increase their price. One thing we have learned, and nearly universally, is when you have the courage to reprice as a system, and you use tools like Go Proposal to do this, you don't lose business. You will lose the wrong clients. Isn't that what we want? But you gain time, you reduce workload, and most importantly, you're poised to grow the firm because you have extra capacity, which is what we all want. So shout out to Mary Beth and in Denver. So as we begin to wrap things up, I wanted to bring it back and thank Padgett, our company, for sponsoring the webinar today. You know, what we try to do is educate and provide some value that I hope you'll take with you as you go throughout this year. We are always available to follow up with and have a deeper conversation about this. Of course, if anyone on the call today is interested in learning more about how you could benefit as a member of Padgett, we'd love to have that conversation with you. The bottom line is, being a part of Padgett, you will get back time in order to build the firm that you want. There is a community here of entrepreneurs, independent owners that are running that race with you. And it makes it a lot easier when you're part of an outstanding peer group, some that are ahead of the race, some of the a little bit behind you in the race, that can be mentors and mastermind collaborators. And so through our support and through our model and through training and coaching, you go out and build that firm that you want to build. You still own your firm. You're just a part of a larger network that provides a lot of benefits. And we'd love to have a conversation with you. And just to drill down specifically, we offer an outstanding tax and support team. So your staff can call our tax support team of enrolled agents and CPAs to have answers questions, saving you time. A modern technology stack at deep discounts, because we have supreme buying power with over 165 independently owned firms. We help with recruiting. We have a full marketing team with inbound marketing leads that is designed to help grow your business and start to build that accounting practice that you want to build, not just the tax. Practice management support to help you have the right business model. The things we've talked about today, our team of coaches walks you through that process, as well as benchmarking. So where are you stacking up in key metrics around right sizing and being efficient and growth compared to your peers? It's all part of our system. And on an annual program that includes events, meetings, and fun events, and monthly training, all part of a wonderful community. So the next polling question is essentially going to ask you this question: would you like to learn more about what we have to offer? If there's even a 1% interest, click yes. I promise you this, we're not going to bug you, but it never hurts to have a conversation. So Beryl, we can go ahead and fire off that next polling question. We'd love to talk with you if you're interested.
Great. It's already launched and live on screen. I'll let the attendees answer, and you're free to give any additional wrap-up thoughts before we close out today.
Roger, I'll pass it to you. What would be your parting thought? And then Amanda.
First of all, I'd say thank you for joining us today. And we've all had this experience where we're killing ourselves at the end of tax season and we see the firm next door cooking hot dogs and having a great time, or a picture of them celebrating, and we go, gosh, I wish that was us. Well, it can be. And we can help you get there. But I will use this analogy. Everything we've talked about today is like the pieces of puzzles. And what we want to do is, first of all, identify the pieces to your puzzle and put those pieces together so that picture next year is not of another firm, but of your firm that is working more efficiently, and you're out there not scuffling to survive April 15th. You're laughing at the people next to you that were where you were a couple of years ago. So reach out to us and let us see if we can help.
And I'll just add, life is short. It's too short to be in a job that you don't like. So there's a way out. There's an easy-ish way to get your practice to something that brings you joy, that fulfills you. It doesn't have to be a burden. So,
well, we wish you well this year, and we'd love to speak with those of you who are interested in learning more. And I believe that concludes our presentation, and just want to express gratitude for everyone spending some time with us this morning, and to Amanda and Roger for putting work in to bring this awesome content. Thanks, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.